Are you ready for it?
I'm a real tough kid. I can handle my shit. They said fake it, gotta fake it till you make it, and I did.
I'm just a terrible person, I guess.
Ice camera bitch. Even when you wanna die. Breaking down, I hit the floor. All the pieces of me shattered as the crowd was chanting more. With a broken heart.
Who's afraid of little old me?
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah the Raging Tomato here, bringing to you live another Throwdown Thursday. This evening, I have our wonderful guest, Lumberjack Landlord, who made his debut on a couple of our panels already. I think Millennial Mike brought his friends, and they're having fun now. So he's so he brings forth the claim, the Trump reforms, cutting the social programs. And I believe you kind of wanted to dive into that realm. Are they good? Are they bad? Let's go. Tell me all about it.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. And I appreciate you think I'm a good guest now. We'll see what happens in 2 hours. But
Oh, I think it's going to get even better. You're going to be one of my new favorites.
yeah.
You
Jury's
already
out.
made my clip.
Yeah, jury's out, Sarah. Again, I think, having been an executive in my career, where I made my living for a long time, I'm a landlord now, but I'm a ninth grade dropout. And so being a ninth grade dropout, you get a certain level of perspective. There's a lot of horrible jobs that you have to have, and everyone doubts that you can do anything because, if you don't have paper, then you're an idiot. And so for me, I was, bored in school. It wasn't my thing. And, so I really liked working. I really liked that I got rewarded for doing something and doing something well. And so I got paid. And so, from that, and I'm entrepreneurial in nature. So I opened up my own business when I was a kid and started selling. And, I got really good at it and had a great career. But I think I bring that all back to say is that, when we've had any executive in any role for, any time that they were newly appointed, the thing that I was always focused on was I want to see the plan. Then I want to see the actions that they're taking in the plan. And then I want to start to judge how that plan is actually working. So I loved the idea of Doge. I think that there's a lot of wasteful spending. I like to speak about stuff that I know. So I can talk about housing, specifically the housing choice voucher program. And all the waste, fraud, and abuse that occurs in that program, and kind of the general attitude of administration, and really talk to people about how something like that can be fixed and how it was only expanded under the previous administration. And under this administration, it's now looking at being forced to have a lot of cuts. And I think that a lot of those cuts are good. But the thing that I like the most is taking the control away from the federal government on this and giving it back to the states and make it grant based, and then have the states run it, because then you get to decide which states run that program well and which states don't. And then that's how it, better gets voted on from a state perspective as opposed to federal perspective, because these administrators of this program, there's local and then there's federal, and the federal ones are kind of horrible.
Let's start with federal. Break down what the federal is doing now that's good, bad, ugly. What say you?
Yeah. So, there's basically a reporting structure like there would be in any organization. You have the local housing authorities, and those can be based on a town. If it's too small of a town, it might dovetail off of another town. In some states, they're county based. In some states, they're run by outsourced organizations. So it's, it's not the federal government at all. It's not even a government agency. It's actually outsourced.
Private company.
Yeah, it's outsourced to another company that's handling
contracted in.
Yeah. And so the biggest challenge that there is a lack of consistency with application of the rules across the board. You'll find housing authorities that have had the same people in charge for 10 years, And largely speaking, those are usually pretty well run. And then you have
Mhm.
others where it's a revolving door in that housing director role, and it's a new one every 18 months. Well, there's a reason that that's occurring. It's an indicative sign of how unhealthy the organization is as a whole in that area. But the challenge that you have with how it's done federally is how it then reports upwards. And that is that if I'm having a trouble on a localized level, I'm supposed to be able to go to the federal level and they're supposed to do something. I spent months and months and months fighting to get just a phone call, and I couldn't get a phone call. And so I'm contacting all the people that I know that I have a relationship with, all the people that I work with, and saying, I just need to have a phone call because there is a problem. There is a crime occurring that I want to get taken care of, and I need housing support to do that, because you can't be the guy that's just evicting a person on a housing voucher.
Right.
There's a higher bar there. There just is. There's just a higher bar there. And so that was a challenge because I wanted to make sure they knew, hey, this is what my plan is. I'd like for you to intervene and play a part, have a conversation with them, and maybe we can eliminate this problem. And then they get to stay. If they don't eliminate this problem, then they can't stay and they got to go and they're going to be homeless. Because once a housing voucher, it depends on the housing voucher that you have. It depends on who's administering it. If you get evicted on that voucher, the housing authority has the right to take your voucher. That's a major life change. Somebody getting $3,000 a month for rent.
Yeah.
And now they're not getting $3,000 a month for rent because they needed the $3,000 a month in rent. Otherwise they wouldn't have gotten it. Right. So it's understanding the program and how it's rolled out, that there's far too many layers and lack of effectiveness. It's kind of like the Department of Education, in the early 80s Department of Education, but our scores are down since then. So if you have a whole department that's comprised over running this and trying to get better results, why are the results worse? And so it's the same thing with housing. And that's really where I think it needs to go back. It needs to be pushed to the state level, grant funded, managed that way, because then people can know, hey, this is a bad part of town. We don't want all of our voucher holders living in that part of town. Like, we have local knowledge and local know-how where we also know that this person doesn't have transportation. And so if they're in some sort of a treatment program, we need to make sure that they're not choosing the house that's the nicest. We're needing to make sure that they choose a house that's the closest to treatment so they can continue treatment and stay, like, more thoughtful process.
Right. So you're saying right now the federal, I got some feedback. Is that, it's got to be bouncing. I'm going to reduce mic on your end and maybe that will, that seemed to fix it. So you're saying like the federal government essentially kind of lays down all of these regulations, and then are the states, are their hands tied to the federal regulations of it all?
So some in those on the state side will try and work with the regulations and say, hey, listen, we understand the intent of this, and so here's what we can do to remediate the situation. And others are just like, nope, that's what the book says. Nope, that's what the book says. Nope, that's what the book says. And so as an example, we have a tenant that passed away. Not in the unit, but she passed away when she was away visiting friends. We found out on like the 21st of the month, the program sent us something saying, no notice, you're done. You're not getting a check for this month. The rest of the world has to give notice even if they die. Like, because that's the rule. That's the rule. You got to give notice. Even passing away, your lease still survives. So it's just good.
Wouldn't you have some type of, I'm guessing, insurance system in place to cover kind of things like that help you at all? Is there
no? Because I find those insurances pretty predatory. Like the newer landlords will typically be the ones to buy that stuff. They'll lever up. They'll buy those types of programs. And the problem is that most people don't understand that very often your margin might be 4 to 6%. Everyone thinks that landlords get rich with one unit. It's not true.
Right.
Typically you're talking 4 to 6%. So when you start to get 10 units, 20 units, 30 units, that percentage adds up. But the key is the duration of time. The idea is I don't think that the program should have to pay an infinitum, but they should give 30 days notice like anybody else would have to give. They shouldn't have special rules.
Right.
And that there should just be a 30-day notice period where it's like, okay, we know in 30 days that we have to have this unit back on market. because they
Right.
also don't get involved when the tenant trashes the place and causes $7,000 of damage,
Oh, I see. I see where
you
you
know?
go. Yeah, because
So
and essentially the government paying their rent is that guarantee,
mhm,
right?
yeah.
So if the client or tenant trashes it, who's I mean,
Then
because
the
they can't afford rent to begin with, how are they gonna afford to pay for
exactly.
stuff after it gets
Yeah,
trashed?
exactly. The other thing too is that there's just a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse with that system. There's just a lot
Mhm.
of people that are perfectly able-bodied. I walk into them in Walmart, I bump into them in Target, I see them at the movies with their kids, with my kids, and all that's fine, but I'm working, and they're
Yeah,
not. They're getting
right.
the gift. And so I think that I would like to see a lot more people helped and the benefit per person reduced. That way they have to participate in the process.
Mhm.
I think that that's challenging with elderly folks, people that are 65, 70 years old. I'm not saying it for them. I'm talking about able-bodied people, 20s, 30s, 40s that are somehow on this program. And what can you do? Because I'm sure there's something you can do. I know that
Mhm.
I'm positive there's something you can do.
Well, why would you if somebody else is gonna pay the bill, though?
Well, that's kind of it. The case study that we see that was the most offensive was we had a mom of 3 kids with 3 different dads, and she was getting about $6,000 a month worth of assistance.
Damn.
She is never going to be smart enough to make that amount of money in the marketplace. And so what they've done is they've taken away her ability to ever become anything other than a recipient of free money. And I think that over time, I think that steals from your psyche. I think that steals from, everybody wants to be valuable. Everybody wants to add value. And I think that people are like, oh no, in the beginning, I just love this because it's free money. But I think 10 years, 15 years down the road, they have no life skills. They have no job skills. They have, many of these people, if that voucher goes away, they're 100% dependent on the government and they wouldn't know what to do. They couldn't get a job. Or they could get a job, but the job that they're going to get isn't going to bring them in $6,000 a month. It's going to bring them in
Right.
closer to like 3, and they're going to be working 40 hours a week at McDonald's or Dunkin's or something like that.
I do believe it kind of adds a handicap.
It does.
I'm all for supplemental,
Yes.
if
Mhm.
somebody needs kind of an extra
Hand
step
up.
up,
Hand up.
yeah.
Yep.
But I don't believe it should handicap you to the point where it's like, oh, well, if I uh, start working at a job, I'm going to lose this assistance, and then I'm also going to be making less than what I was doing while I was staying at home doing nothing.
Right.
It kind of and speaking of money, why are you not sending yours, chat? I am working for this. I am putting on good shows. I am busting my ass for you day in and day out, getting on Twitter wars
Yeah, guys.
and researching people. Do better. You know it. The goal is put in, and the goal, I actually labeled the goal as snot rockets because that was the last thing you said to me before I started the intro. I was like, that sounds like a fun word. Snot rockets. So chat, do your thing. And we will read all of your super chat questions when we're kind of towards the end and before we open the panel up. So here in like 40 minutes or so. But in anyways, this, you send your own.
Yeah. See how good my typing is when I'm typing with one finger? It's
I
that
kind of
bad.
like the new word,
Yeah. Because you're
oxymoron.
something. That just means you're something.
I'm something.
You're
Hi,
something.
mama. Um, but yeah, so I'm a fan of like, hey, I just need to feel a little bit of support. I need a little extra oomph to get
Yes.
through, right?
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like to sit on that other end when it's,
Yeah.
like there's not a pot to piss in and you're like, shit, how am I going to do this? And I just grinded and figured it out. And I had a very good support network with my family and so on and
Sure.
so forth. But I think if the government just sent me a check every day and said, "Hey, just
Yeah.
stay home," and like, then where's the motivation? I have no
Correct.
motivation to get out of that predicament because that's a pretty happy one to be in.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you see when you see unemployment go from 20 weeks to 99 weeks. All of a sudden, everybody's getting jobs at 102 weeks instead of 22 weeks. And so that
Oh,
it's one of those moving things. And so I believe in what a hand up program, not a handout program.
Mhm.
And so I would like to see the amount that they contribute to any person's, able-bodied person's rent. I'd like to see that reduced to probably half. That way they
Mhm.
still have to work and come up with something. If it was some
Mhm.
sort of cataclysmic event, like the breadwinner in the family, the husband died, and you've got mom, and maybe she doesn't have family, fill in the blank. I think that we should be able to help somebody like that out, but we can, instead of having, is it helpful if we have programs that average 5+ years to get on the program? Like,
Mhm.
that woman needs help right now today. She doesn't need help 5 years from now. She needs help right now
Right.
today. And what is
Right.
she going to do? Like, what are the things that she's going to have to be driven to in order to pay the bills over the next 5 years? Hopefully it's just work hard, but we know that's probably not the case, right?
Mhm.
So the opportunity is there where if we can take the number of people that have vouchers, we can double that number just by cutting in the number in half of what they're
Mhm.
getting. But more importantly, make it a more sustainable program where we say, hey, listen, you basically have 3-month blocks, and at this you're full, or it's or 6-month blocks. But your full rent at this, and your 75% rent at that, and your 50% rent at that, and your 25 at that. And then after 2 years, you're off the program, it disappears. But
Mhm.
we gave you a 2-year jump start to kind of figure life out, get things figured out. And I have no problem with a program that can help people out that way when they're actually in desperation. I have no
Mhm.
problem with something like that. But yeah, the way that it's constituted today is you get on the program, you wait, and literally they have people that hit 18, and because they make no money and because it's income based, they're 18 and they fill out all the paperwork for the program. And by the age of 22 or 23, they are on a voucher for the rest of their lives and playing the
Damn.
system. I've seen
I'm
3
messed
generations.
up. I'm
Yeah.
messed up. Here I went out working my ass off, putting
Sucker.
myself through school, doing all like late nights, early mornings, 3
Yeah.
jobs, 4 jobs sometimes.
You dummy.
Holy shit.
You dummy. Yeah. Saw you coming. But here's the
Oh,
thing is, if we could put the program, if we could properly set it up where it is actually needs based and verified, not I have
mhm,
fibromyalgia.
mhm,
Like it needs to be verified. And if I see you, in the park every weekend, and I see you at the movie theaters, and I see you, constantly walking around the neighborhood in your stroller with your baby, there's lots of moms that would love to be home with their kids, but they can't be because they're the sole breadwinner and they have to provide. And
mhm,
maybe they were divorced, maybe they're widowed, who knows? But I think that's where the government falls short, is creating these never die programs where
mhm.
people get on them and then they never get off them until they die. I want to see hands
Damn.
hands up, not hands out. And we can impact that many more people and raise them up, give them a platform to jump off of.
Well, let me ask you this
Sure.
though. I mean, do you really believe that people who don't, I mean, people who want to do better for themselves
Mhm.
will?
Sure.
So those people who don't, who like just cheat the system and kind of get away with it the
Mhm.
way they want to,
Mhm.
they weren't going to do anything else anyways.
But your biggest expense, well, yeah, but that's kind of, then in that case, why do anything, right? So I think
Mhm.
that the challenge is putting something in place where everybody recognizes and understands that this is an opportunity that they're given, and it's given in a window. There's no extensions, there's no take backsies either. So let's
Mhm.
get you here, let's get you going, and let's figure out how we get you through the system and get you back in the game, participating and being a part of it. Like, how do we make that happen? Because
Mhm.
our country is an unbelievable and amazing country. I'm a ninth grade dropout and I got to where I got to. And that
Mhm.
wasn't because I was handed anything. Sadly, mom and dad didn't have any money. In fact, I was helping out with the bills when dad left. So, hey,
Aw.
c'est la vie. Well, it's okay. It's the way it goes. And that's why, I don't need to Google something. I have experience. It was
Right.
experiential for me. And so for you, you're a fighter. You could be at 0 again tomorrow and you'd be back and successful within 24 months again.
Mhm. Oh,
And
faster than that.
well, yeah. I mean,
No,
well,
no,
like,
no. I
yeah,
don't I don't sit in the shithole for long. I make shit work.
yeah. But that's the thing, is that then that there's the winners that can make it happen faster. Then there's the people that just need more guidance in that program. And the
Mhm.
challenge that I have is very often when you talk to the administrative side, their answer is, I'm not a social worker. I just I just fill out the paperwork. It's like, well, I'm not their social worker. I'm not their case manager.
Right.
You know, most people always ask me, they say, in the big, vast number of types of different tenants that we rent to, who's the worst tenant that you ever have? It's consistently one. Would you like to guess what the worst tenant is almost every single time?
I don't know. Probably old people. No, they're
Nope.
probably easy.
Newly divorced women.
Nah.
They're the worst. They're the absolute
Why?
worst.
What makes them so bad?
Because there's a reason usually that their husband left them, and there's usually that reason. And all of a sudden, because I'm the landlord, it's, can you do this? Can you do that? No. Nope. I can't build you. Literally, I said to the person, she was like, this just recently happened. She said, I really like a set of shelves over the laundry. I said, yeah, sure, we can do that. I said, happy to do it. I said, we'll add 3 shelves so you can, stack whatever you want on top of there. We'll give you 3 nice, formidable shelves. Mm-hmm. The previous tenant never asked for it, so we didn't do it. So she asked for it. We said, yeah, sure, we'll do it. The next day, I actually get 3 things from Etsy showing these massive built out custom. And I wrote her back and I go, what's this? And she goes, well, this is kind of what I'm thinking. I go,
wait, did you go
$3,000? What are you fucking nuts?
Did you go get like the wire shelving and pop those in?
we actually do something pretty cool. We actually make stuff out of butcher block. So
nice.
it's actually pretty cool. It's not shitty, so we actually have pretty nice units. In most of our units, our rule is that we won't rent out a unit that we wouldn't live in ourselves. That's the rule. That's the rule that we live by. And so it was astonishing to me because that's the kind of stuff, and it's very much, I get that divorce is very painful. I've had friends that go through divorce, but it's really, I believe that divorce often emotionally is harder on the women based on what I've seen. Cause I've had divorced dads come in and they're just kind of like, they're kind of, they have a tough time with it, but it's really the moms that really I've seen struggle the most. And then it's, I'm waiting on my check from my husband. I get it, but that's not what you were approved based on. You're approved based on your income, and I can appreciate that. So it's a lot of things. It's financial, it's emotional. When she sees the repair guy, he's there for 2 hours because she won't stop talking about her feelings. And I'm like, listen, you're not a counselor. I saw your resume. You're barely a carpenter. Don't do that.
Oh, I mean, don't cock block him like that. Come on now.
He's married. He's cock blocked.
Oh, okay.
I don't need to be the cause of his divorce.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I was thinking he was like a young strapping man.
No. We purposely send old guys with really low hanging ball bags.
Oh God.
Yeah, exactly. See, it's gross. You want nothing to do with it. Exactly right.
Yep, I'll go with that. I'll go with that. If I was a young dude, that would be the job I would get into.
Oh, dear God.
That would be what I would do. I would either be like a internet, like Verizon or something, where you got to go and plug in their routers and troubleshoot and push buttons. Well, that's the ones who were calling you, right? Would be the women.
Yeah. And we want to, we're people. And I have 5 sisters. I would want to see someone help my sister. But I can't have the expectation that we're going to send a repair guy and he's going to be there for 2 hours so she can, rip on her ex. Like, I get it. Yeah. We get it. But we got to fix your thing because we got 17 other things we got to get to. So that's cute. But it's just again, this is experiential and fact based. It has nothing to do with Googling it.
I'll bet you could find that on Google.
Maybe.
I'll bet you could. So let's shift over to with Trump's new reforms. How is he cutting it down, and what is the kind of like, what are we doing going forward, and does this hurt or help?
Yeah, so I think the thing that what I understand is being proposed, because it depends on who you ask what's actually being proposed. And so I think what I like the most about the new plan is that all of the money, instead of it being managed and done through the federal government, it's essentially the federal government just gives the grant to the state, and then the state figures out how to manage it. And I think that from that, without that federal government stepping in, I can tell you, once I've gotten outside my state and started working with the territory managers and the the regional housing authority, stakeholders. Like, it's just a cesspool of not getting anything done.
More red tape.
Yeah, it's just more red tape, and it's months and but it's the bureaucracy, it's the heavy lifting. I want to see a mom that needs help. I want to see her be able to sign up for the program, pass the fitness test, and then get access to it within 30 or 60 days, right? To meet her where she's at. Same thing for anybody.
Now, if the federal government like goes through with this, or if they already have, I don't know. Have they already pushed it, or are they pushing it?
No.
Okay.
It's being pushed.
So let's assume this all happens, then
Yeah.
will the application process change, or will the local state be able to kind of create its own regulations to it, or are there guidelines that the federal regulations will require?
Yeah, I think I think it will be a mix of both. I think it'll have general federal guidelines, but that's why they want to give it as a grant. And then they can wait and see, hey, are they handling this properly? Like, is there something that we need to address here? Because I think where every state's different, if you have some areas that are really heavily in elderly, then there needs to be a different set of rules there, because somebody from 65, if they live to 85, they're not getting off of Section 8.
Right.
They're not getting off the program.
Right.
So that voucher very likely has a very long road. And there's people in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s, they absolutely can get off the voucher, especially if they went on it. I want to get them on it to help them, get them off it, so we can then use it to help the next person out.
Right.
And reduce the benefit, so people actually have to participate in their living.
So okay, so what I mean, my thought process immediately goes to compliance. Because I'm sure the federal government would have some type of compliance. Yeah. So do you know where that stands, or what that would be like between the states in order to receive the grants?
No, I don't think that they know either. I think that that's still something that's being worked out, that has to be hashed out with exactly how the local, because again, I have places in 5 different towns, or 5 different cities and towns. There's 4 different housing authorities representing those 5 towns.
Wow.
2 of them are fantastically run. They really understand the program. They understand what they're there to do. They help their tenants. They help the landlords. They recognize that there's one in that group that shits on landlords in the press all the time. And he wonders why he has a bunch of vouchers available and that people don't want to work with his program. It's because he's an idiot. No one wants to deal with the shithead. He's just an absolute moron, and doesn't understand that when a landlord participates in the program, we're taking Section 8 very often is not the highest market rent. It's usually a significant reduction. So,
and you're also taking a lot of risk with tenants who, if they're not responsible enough to pay their own rent, then they're likely not responsible enough to pay if they mess something up, and so on and so forth. So, yeah,
where are they going to get the money from?
Yeah, exactly.
You caused $7,000 in damage because you got pissed off that I evicted you. Where are you going to get $7,000?
Right. And the government doesn't step in. I mean, who signs the lease? Does the
tenant? The tenant signs the lease, and then the government makes us sign something called a HAP contract, which is basically an extra set of rules on top of the lease. And that's the challenge, is that I had a tenant do $7,000 worth of damage to a unit, and all she literally just eventually left the unit after she ran out of time with court. She just left the unit. She left it completely trashed, and they ended up giving her, she still ended up with a voucher to use somewhere else. They didn't take away her voucher.
What?
Yeah.
I feel like there's almost you should be able to put a lien of some sort on that.
Well, I mean, I think, what the good housing authority does is they say, hey, so you owe that money and we want to see you do a workout plan with them. But now that's when you're talking about the silly numbers, like $10 a week for the next 30 years.
Oh God.
Because that's what you can get to. It could be $10 a week for the next, 12 years based on getting interest.
Draw blood from a tulip.
Right. Exactly. The other thing too is that if it's somebody that is maxed out on SSI, Social Security or something like that, or Medicare, if they're maxed out on one of those programs, and on those programs, I actually can't garnish that. I can't get to that. So now I'm even less incented to take on somebody where that's their main source of income. They get all
Right.
their rent paid for. They get all their utilities paid for. They're on food stamps. They're on the yacht. They're on the spinning wheel of fun where they get everything. And the problem is that if there's ever that level of an issue, I can't even get access to that money. So it would go in front of the judge, and the judge would just go, "You can't touch that money. So what other money do you want to touch?" They have no other income. But it's because they're benefited up the wazoo. They have every other benefit that there is. Food stamp. And it's like, then don't
Yeah.
do that thing. Because when you do $7,000 of damage, that's not an oopsie. That's
Right.
I fucking hate you and I'm getting back at you.
Right. I feel like that should like stagnate their process. Like you can't get anything else until because if
It
they're
should.
fronting the money,
Yes.
in order for them to rent out your unit,
Yeah.
uh like and they go in and do a bunch of damage and then don't pay the tab, I feel
Yeah.
like their benefits should stop because
I agree.
that is what allows people to take advantage of the system. Like
Correct.
I feel like that's a loophole that allows them to do that. And it just doesn't I don't it doesn't sit right with me
It
at
doesn't
all.
it doesn't sit right with me because, people complain about rents going up. Well, why did they have to go up? They had to go up because I have a $7,000 worth of recoup that has to be done.
Mhm.
And on top of that, very often that Section 8 program is 15%, sometimes 20% less than market.
Mhm.
Here's the other thing. You have people out there that sign up for this being their way that they're doing it, and they're only Section 8 landlords. And then the government comes in and says, "Hey, we're reducing payment by 12%." That's a problem if you're only making 9.
Right.
But that can
Right.
happen arbitrarily. That can happen arbitrarily. It's just happened arbitrarily. And that's a challenge. So I think for any business, for anything to succeed, you need to understand what the ground rules are. You need to play by the ground rules. You need to work together because it's really about creating a solution. It's not, these Section 8, the concept of landlords just sitting there with a few units getting rich is just completely absurd.
Right. I feel
Um,
like you'd have to have a whole lot of units.
yeah, maybe like
Um
153 as an example,
that sounds like a number specifically.
a little bit. But it took 20 years to build that.
Right.
It
That's like an
took 20 years to
empire
build that.
almost.
It is a little bit, but it took 20 years to build that. And, we took the crap of the crap. We didn't buy anything turnkey. We bought stuff and rehabbed it ourselves.
Mhm.
We hired contractors. This last year, I spent over $1 million on small and local business, giving them jobs and giving them work. My
Wow.
plumber makes $150 an hour.
Do you need a toilet
Yeah,
I'll unplug
yeah, I get it.
happily.
Well, here's the funniest part. He doesn't. He's like, the rule. I don't touch shit. Not joking. Not joking.
So wait, hold up.
Yep.
So
Swear.
how does this get resolved if he walks into a unit and there's like oh, you have to go clean it up first.
I did it until my daughter got sick 3 years ago. I did it. Until my daughter got
Wow.
sick 3 years ago, I did it. I was the one that was, sending snakes down pipes and a metal snake down
Mhm.
pipe to clear it. I did it for the first 20 years of the business. So there's nothing I haven't done in a unit. There's nothing I haven't done in a unit. And that's why I built the business myself. So when people, act like it wasn't something that was earned, I
Right.
sacrificed vacations. And I'm not saying anybody needs to feel sorry for me. Those are just the choices I make. So when
Mhm.
you're a 42-year-old soy boy and the only thing that you can do is sit behind your keyboard and get angsty.
Keyboard
Yeah, I'm
warrior.
angsty. Oh, I'm so tall. I'm in pursuit of knowledge. Don't you know? I'm in pursuit of knowledge. Dude, do something. Fucking do something.
Oh
Do
my
it.
god.
You know?
Oh
So,
my god. Dude, that was funny. You in pursuit, man. I hope he comes on tonight cuz
oh yeah. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, the only reason the guy has a job is because of whose, dick he came out of. So yeah. I mean,
Oh,
that's
that's
just
right,
that.
because he's a family business.
Yeah, he works
That's
for the family
right.
business. And there's a reason why he's working for his dad, is his dad knows as soon as he gives it to him, he's gonna fucking blow it up with his stupid ideas.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, I
So,
see it all the time.
no, yeah, I believe thing and now unless you're like working with it, towards it, for it, pushing and kind of
Yeah.
expanding, like the next level comes from you. Like you see
Sure.
the next level. I
Mhm.
think that because when you create something, you have a much bigger appreciation for it versus when it's being handed to you. It's
Of
like,
course.
oh, like, do you care that much?
Yeah.
So are there any part of Trump's reforms that you don't like or that are hurting the like the renters, the landlord area, or even an entrepreneurship, or
Well,
even owning all of these units?
yeah, you know what really hurts? Tariffs against China. Because
Why?
we ship product in. I mean, the product that we buy, we
Mhm.
got hooked on cheap shit. That's what happened. And so
Oh,
when I'm buying spray foam insulation, guess where it comes from? It comes from
China.
China. And it's fucking expensive. And it's getting more expensive. And I have a project right now that I have to do. I kid you not, the price went up like 23%. So for those to sit there and like, oh, it doesn't hurt you, you have no idea, dude. You just have no idea. Like when you're in an office or when you're working in a job and you have a boss and you're like, oh, my boss sucks. He's such an idiot. He's your boss, and then two people up, it's like every single layer you go up, they think they're more dumb. They just have no idea the problems that they face with on a daily basis. When you
Right.
have big teams, when you're an executive, you know what your job is daily? It's firefighting. It's firefighting.
Yes.
That's your job every single day. It's your
Yeah.
job every single day. And so I would literally say to my people, listen, just let's not start a fire. Let's just do our jobs, do this thing. Like I'm a really easy guy to work for. Here's the expectation. This is what we're trying to do to get there. Here's my role in trying to get that there for you.
Mhm.
And that's it. Like, do not overthink this. This is a
Right.
really simple thing. And so from that, I created a lot of people that now are multimillionaires. They're very successful people. And it was because they were willing to do the work. They weren't they didn't depend on others per se. Like they were
Right.
like you. That was like bootstraps and like, I got to figure this out. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And that means that I might not be home at 4:30.
Mhm.
And I might
Yeah.
miss and I might miss a LARP mission this Saturday. Like
A
that might happen.
LARP? What the hell is a LARP
Look,
mission?
look it up. It's good. It's funny.
No, now I gotta hold on. What is
So
a
yeah, look it up.
LARP?
Look it up.
What is a LARP mission?
Yeah.
Live action role play, form
Yeah.
of role playing game where each player creates so-called LARP character according to a certain. Oh, is this like a kind of like
Fake time. Fake time. Playtime. It's like playtime. It's adult
video
playtime.
games?
Yeah. I mean, the tagline should be because I've never seen a vagina. Like that should be the tagline. You know? Because for boobies, I Google them. That's what I do. I Google them.
Oh my god!
You know, it just is what it is. So, yeah. So I think that generally speaking, I voted for Trump. I know that he was a much better option because everyone likes to pretend like there was some ether option. There wasn't an ether option. There was Kamala or Trump. Those are my two options.
Right.
And giving the entire world blowjobs is not going to get done what needs to get done. And that's all Kamala had to offer
Right.
because she is a clown. And so my options were in this system that I have, it is Trump or Kamala. Those are my
Mhm.
options. I picked the one that has a far better chance of fixing the problems and not creating a bunch more programs that we can't fund that are
Mhm.
improperly managed and improperly built. So he's, from my perspective, I give executives time, and he's the chief executive of the US.
Mhm.
I give them time to figure things out. And I would, there's lots of things I would take Trump's Twitter account away. I would take it away and just say, Mr. President, please. Like, please.
No,
Please.
not Twitter.
No. I would take it away. I would just be like, please no. Please no. Because I think that there's a lot of that stuff that comes out where it's like, it charges people. And it's like, hurrah, let's do it. And it's like, and that's fine. But like, let's just really make it about the work. Like, let's just really get in there and make it about the work. But, this is what politics has become. It's a circus. So
No, I think even Flow State, also known as the Powder Dusty, like he has a whole belief system of how it's just like WWE. Do you
mhm.
remember?
Yeah, script a
It's
little bit.
like that.
Yeah. Can you smell what the Rock is
And
cooking? Of course.
can you smell? Um, oh my god, I
So,
used to watch that shit when it was WWF.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
Before
OG.
yeah. Yeah.
But I
The
used to
World
watch that with my
Preservation Organization took WWF away.
I know,
Give me a
right? Like,
break.
why?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
But I used to watch that stuff with my brothers. But like his whole flow states concept is that politics are exactly that. It's just a big distraction. What
It is.
big circus out there.
It
It's
is.
popular vote.
It is.
They throw a little sprinkles in there to get you all riff-raffed up.
Yeah.
And there's really they're just paid actors essentially.
Yes. Yes. Very well paid. Very well paid
Very well
actors.
paid. Very
You know,
well paid.
you see these people that go to Congress and they're broke and they leave in 10 years and you're like, how much money do you have now?
Yeah,
What the
how?
what?
I wanna know
And
how.
so for me, my big problem is oversight. My big problem is I want to see these things exposed. I want to see this stuff taken care of. And
Mhm,
this is the program that I know really well, that I have the experience with, where it's like, if you got a business person in that role that really was able to affect change, that's where the neat thing is when you go down to the state level,
mhm,
I could choose to invest in Maine. I could choose to invest in New Hampshire. I could choose to invest in Massachusetts. I picked the one that was most aligned with what I was trying to accomplish. And that wasn't Maine and that wasn't Massachusetts. So I didn't want anything to do with those states. I didn't want to invest there. I purposely wanted to invest in New Hampshire because
mhm.
they were the most aligned with what I was trying to accomplish. So
That makes
that's what I
sense.
did. And so when you do that, when you bring it down to the state level, when you bring all of the money down to the state level and you get rid of all this crazy bureaucracy at the top where it's like, well, I
Mhm,
need to call with this person. No. I just want to be able to kind of like Calendry. I want to be
mhm.
able to get a 30-minute with someone when I'm giving them 18 of my units
Right.
to rent out to their population. I want to be able to get a 30-minute call and discuss with them a problem and get them to intervene. Or the only other option is I have to spend a bunch of money with court and filing papers and all of this other stuff that I don't want to do. I don't want to put the tenant through that stress, even though they're probably doing the wrong thing if I'm filing. But it
Mhm.
just needs to be a conversation. But literally they're like, hey, my job is done. The paperwork's pushed.
Right.
Most of them fit that role. And if you talk to a lot of I like to talk to the maintenance guys that actually maintain the properties that are owned by the housing authorities. I like to talk to those guys because I'm like, guys, like I met a couple of them and I just said, I got to ask a question. They're like, what's the question? I was like, do you see the same stupid shit that I see? Like how the fuck did you break that? Like, how'd you break the back of a toilet? Like, that was one colossal shit. Like, how did you break the back of a toilet? And so those are the kind of things that I like to ask them. And that's what they've been really good about. And answering my questions are like, dude, you wouldn't believe the stuff that we see. You wouldn't believe it. And they're like, and they can do pretty much anything other than burn the place down. And even that's happened. And
Mhm.
they still keep their voucher.
Wow. It
It's
it
just
it
broken.
that yeah, I feel like from what I see, people just aren't bootstrappy enough,
No,
right?
not
There's
even close.
no like accountability is just out the window.
Correct.
Aspiring to create your own is out
Sure.
the window.
Sure.
Uh, like responsibility for you yourself and your loved ones is
Yep.
just like it's we've created a system where it's too easy for the government to just come in and be daddy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, probably
And
something that In Pursuit of Knowledge enjoys. But for me, I want them out of the equation. I want the person to be personally responsible because it is a gift that you're being handed thousands of dollars a month for nothing. It's a
yeah,
gift, right? You're being given that. You didn't earn it. You're being given it.
right.
So if I'm going to give you or have a program that taxpayers, all the really hardworking people out there that are going and driving 60 miles to work and 60 miles home and seeing their kid that much less, why are they less valuable? They're more valuable to me. They're workers. They're grinding. They're doing everything
Mhm.
that they can. I was in that role. I grinded for years. For years. I was driving 80 miles each way to work every single day. I did that for 8 years. And guess
Mhm.
what happened when I got home? When I got home, I was absolutely exhausted.
I bet.
And when there was a problem with one of my properties, I had to fix it. That's what I got. And I'm not asking anybody to cry for me, but I didn't get here by mistake.
Yeah,
I out earned because I outworked and I out hustled and I out thought.
that's fair.
So
Where where is where could this go wrong with Trump?
Oh, so many places. He's a person. He's a person. Like, it can go wrong so many places. I think the challenging thing that everyone, gets all up in arms about, oh, he's in collusion with Russia. Dude, really? Like, just shut up. Like, you don't know anything because why? Because you think, oh dear God, that's when the trouble begins. You started thinking. I
Oh.
want to give the executives the opportunity to work something out, and I want to see what they work out, and then I'm going to judge them based on the execution of that. It's just that simple. Like, if he doesn't execute over the next 16 months or 18 months remaining, there's going to be a massive blue tide roll in the House and the Senate.
How do you mean?
They will get voted out. The conservatives, the people that supported Trump, they will get voted out. You can't vote out Trump, but they will vote out all of his support, and all of that will go away. So he's got a clock ticking. He's got 18 months. He's got 18 months to fix some major problems. And I need to give him time to do that. Everybody needs to give him time to do that. And if you don't like the way that it's being accomplished, that's okay. There's consequences to losing elections. Suck it. Way it goes. I had to watch that incoherent babbling fool for 4 years. So now it's your turn. My guy's a little bit more orange and babbles just as much and can be even more of a dick, but at least he understands that he's being a dick. And so I wouldn't, from that perspective, that's what I want to see delivered. Is I want to give that time. I'm willing to pay the price. We know that tariffs hurt everyday people. I get that. It's hurting us. But the egg campaign lasted about 2 weeks, and then everybody started looking really stupid for what happened with the egg campaign, because now eggs are cheaper than ever. Gas is cheaper than ever. These are the things where this person does understand market economies. He does. And so that's where I want to see him continue to work through. No more, let's take away subsidies. Listen, there's a lot of zombie corporations. I know, I worked for some of them, or with in conjunction with some of them.
What's a zombie corporation?
Zombie corporation is one that really, quite frankly, without the benefit of the government and pretty lucrative contracts, they wouldn't exist anymore.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I like going in and budget cutting. One of the things that we have to do as a business is we get paid last. Most people don't understand that about small business owners. We get paid last. I'm last on the list. Way it goes. I'm last on the list. Everybody gets paid before me. My contractors get paid. My tenants don't pay me. The contractor doesn't get fucked. I do. My handyman, he gets paid. My other contractors, again, we'll put over $1 million in the market this year for paying blue collar workers. $1 million. That's a lot of jobs. And they work hard for their money. And I respect that. And if the tenant doesn't pay me, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not their problem.
Fault. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not their problem. I pay no matter what. And so when it's flush, it's great. When it's not great, it's not great. But when you run a business, you have to be able to manage through the lean times. I almost went bankrupt 3 times during the great financial crisis. That was a really hard time. It was really stressful. I was newly married. I convinced my wife that she'd married a winner, and the stats didn't show it. And I would just say to her, she's like, hey, I believe that you're going to turn it around. I go, I will. Haven't figured it out yet, but I'll get there. Yeah. We've been married for 18 years. We've been together for 20. Yeah. So, and she's been a part of that. My wife is an amazing woman that recognized that we were going to win or lose together. And so when I was paying to put her through nursing school, and we had a painting issue or whatever, I was in a very high-end, high-stress job, and working with clients and working in hospitals. And so when they need you, they need you. And so if something came up, it was just like, I would feel awful, but I'd be like, hey, you got to go do it. I need you to go do it. And she would just do it. She never complained. She just did it because we're a team, and that's the way it goes. So
that's
did it together.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what teamwork makes a dream work. I'm like the biggest believer in that. And it is one thing to work and do everything yourself and
Sure.
rise up on your own 2 feet. But It's even more special when you can, be side by side with somebody and keep pushing one another to do more and have like your support system there. Because
Yeah,
we can still fall, but that
sure.
doesn't mean we both fall. That means one of us is there to say, nope, nope, I got you. Let's go.
We
Um,
had we had to save up
mhm.
to go to the actual dollar menu at McDonald's.
No.
We were that
Oh,
broke. We had
damn.
when the great financial crisis hit, I went from 8 paying tenants 1 month to the next month 3 and the next month 1.
Damn.
Yeah, every month, every day I was going to work just to try and make enough money to cover the mortgage that month
Mhm.
and save up so I could evict them because they weren't paying. Way it goes.
Wow.
That's fine. It's the way it goes. That's tough luck for me.
Mhm.
But
But you did
we
it.
did it, lived it on the other side. Lived did this so long that now I get to come on the Raging Tomato and talk about it. So
And be able to sleep in tomorrow.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. It's a true
Oh, that's
story.
perfect. I love it. I absolutely love it. So, okay, so you're okay with giving Trump kind of like time to see if his
Yeah,
plan kind of drops through. Do you have any fear factors there?
yeah, of course. I mean, there's always, there's having worked in corporate America as long as I did. There's all like the littlest thing can blow up a deal, right?
Mhm.
The littlest thing. I think what made me elite at being in sales was when we had the very first conversation, I wanted to understand your goals and what you were trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And if I believed I could help you do those, like not with like I think I can help with that. No, no, no. If I really convinced and with the fiber of my being that knew I could help you, then I was all in and I said, and I would say, we're in complete alignment and here's how we can get there.
Mhm.
And if there was ever anything that was like, I would literally I've actually had customers or potential customers tell me, do you not want me to buy your product? And I would tell them, hey, at the end of the day, a bad client is a nightmare and keeps me from creating and getting other good clients. So
Right.
I
I
don't want to
agree.
cost you the time, the effort, and the energy. I don't want this to be a failed project 2 years from now where you're like, why did we ever choose these guys? They suck. And then every
Mhm.
single day I'm like, they're not using it the way we told them to. Like, so I'd rather nip that in the bud in the beginning. On my second date with my wife, I had the conversation and said, here's what's going to happen. Just so you know, I'm not walking away from real estate. That is how I'm going to get out of the daily grind. It's how I'm going to help people. This is my ability to create an opportunity where I can help people. I can give people jobs. I can give them reduced rent housing when I give them that job. I can teach them skills. This is far reaching for me. This is the mission.
Mhm.
And so I hope you say yes. I hope you say yes to another date, but that's a non-negotiable for me. It's not changing. And she said, yeah, I totally understand it. And I said, we're going to need to rely on you sometimes. Like, even when we're dating, we're going to need to rely on you sometimes. And literally that day, we knew that we were supposed to get married. And that was that. And so we had that conversation. It was like, we're going to get married.
Such an American dream. You make me want
Yeah.
to cry.
Yeah. But, the American, the American dream is miles and miles and miles of stepping in shit to get there.
Or cleaning it out.
Cleaning it up. Like, that's true. Yeah. When you call and I'm like, yeah, dude, there's a massive blockage and it's leaking out of the basement V pipe. I need you to come pop the cast iron and make that happen. He goes, I'm not doing that. I go, you're the plumber, right? He goes, yeah, I'm not doing that. I was like, well, who's going to do it? And he goes, not me. And I was like,
Damn.
what the? And so I walk in the room and I said to my wife, she goes, what'd he say? He goes, I said, he's not doing it. She goes, what do you mean he's not doing it? I go, he's not doing it. He told me he's not going to do it. I was like, I don't even know what to do next. And it was just about figuring it out. It was just about figuring it out. So yeah, so I've had poo and pee pee spray back on me when I've popped a pressurized block. So disgusting. Oh,
Oh,
it's so disgusting.
no.
It's so unbelievable. In fact, I kid you not. It was one of my favorite memories with my son. He's 7. I'm an old dad with young kids, so I'm almost
Mhm.
50, and I've got a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 18-month-old.
Mm.
And one of my favorite memories with my son was we were at a Christmas Eve party, and we get a call from a tenant, And the tenant says, I smell shit. And I was like, gas problem? Chili at dinner? I like, help me out. What do you mean? They're like, I smell shit in the basement. And I go, okay. Can you just go down and take a picture of what you think is going on? And so he went downstairs, took a picture, sent it to me, and sure enough, there was literally a pool of shit in the basement.
Oh no.
Yep. And so my son was in the car, and we literally raced home. We had what we call a go bag, and a go bag has all of our shit in it for like taking care of whatever. So waiters and the whole 9 yards. He goes, Dad, I want to go with you. I go, all right, let's do this. And so he just went in there. He goes, Dad, this stinks. I go, oh my word, it stinks so bad. It stinks so bad, dude. It's like the worst. It's like the absolute worst. And so I told him, I said, hey, listen, they had, you know, I called them. I said, yeah, we'll be there. So we left a Christmas Eve party early to go do this. No other people do that. And that's okay. I don't think that they should have to. They get to choose whether or not they do. But there's been a benefit to doing that. And that means that, you know, I got to be 46 and retire and spend a lot of time with my kids. And, you know, I get to be there every day. So, and spend more time with my wife too. It's awesome.
And get sprayed on with shit and piss.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, sometimes you get sprayed on with some piss and shit.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, you got to walk through the trenches, right?
It's true.
Oh, goodness. All right. So here's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. I have dropped the link to the open panel dumpster fire. You know where it's at. It is also pinned in the chat. I'll continue dropping it again in the chat for all the goofballs who can't seem to figure out where the pin is. Or maybe my mods can do that on my behalf. I'd appreciate that. So what we're going to do is go through the super chats. Thank you so kindly for not just flunking on me here, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you so kindly. You're halfway to the goal. You can do better. James Life talks with his new memberships. Congratulations and welcome back to the Mater Life. P Fletch coming in with the big 5 says for the calls, and remember to hit the like, share, and link and donate, you pores. Yeah, we like it when people donate here, because this is work. I mean,
It is work.
I have my 9 to 5. You know, that's my stable and steady. But the YouTube, like, I don't do this shit for free, folks.
Nor should you.
If I did it for free, I would not do it 4 nights a week.
Preach.
Say that. The wealth building journey coming in with the big 5. Ready for a good debate tonight? Well, if you guys are ready for a good debate, I need to see you hop backstage. I see Duck coming back in there. I see you, Duck. I see you, Duck. Of all people, it has to be Duck.
Well, without whom this channel would not exist. I mean, I appreciate that comment that he made a couple weeks ago. I thought it was great.
That's fair. That's fair. Duck he's an interesting one. Okay. At the very least, he is a character, and we all have an appreciation for that.
Yes.
So that's fair. And Mike Ball in with the big 5, just to throw some tomatoes at everyone. We love you so much and so kindly. And of course, our one and only guest for the evening, throwing in the big 20. He paid his taxes. Now you pay your tariffs. These are your tariffs. Okay. Yes. You pay your tariffs. You get in here, so on and so forth. Robert comes in with the big 10 and says, Section 8 tenant destroyed all my doors and 2 casings. Her kids can't stop slamming them. Section 8 said it was my problem, but I have to fix it in 30 days or they stop. Nuh-uh, really?
Yes, sir. That's exactly how it works. So here's something that's awesome. They'll know that there are inspections coming up. They'll do a bunch of damage. Then the inspector comes in and goes, this is unsightly. You can't have it this way. And then they give us a 30-day fix order. And if we don't fix it within 30 days, they stop paying us the rent, and we can't evict the tenant if they stop paying rent. No joke. No joke. That's how it works.
It's their damage.
No shit. Here's the funny thing. It's the same inspector because they get it as a case manager. Mm-hmm. So it's like this, their list of tenant. They saw the place a year ago, saw that it wasn't damaged. So they know that it had nothing to do with the landlord. It's since the tenant moved in that became damaged, and it's still on us. Within 30 days, we have to fix it. And if we don't, they stop paying us. Not joking.
Okay, so hold up. All right. So if they like put a dent in the wall,
Yep.
like they punch a wall and it's a nice big gaping hole in the
Mhm.
sheetrock and stuff.
Yep.
And it's right before the inspection,
Yep.
and it's obviously their fault. They
Yep.
did it, right? It's not
Sure.
like you
We weren't partying in their house where they were gone. Yes.
Shh, maybe you should. Maybe you should.
Right.
But then so the inspector comes and then like, but isn't that something you can charge the tenant for?
What money?
Well, I get that, but
Yeah, like
I
we
mean,
can write them. So here's the thing. We can write them an invoice back and we can invoice them and say, hey, you owe for this repair. We can say that, but then what do? They don't pay it. So then what's my option? My option is then bring it to small claims court, spend $79 to $89 to file, then
right?
get them to go to court. Then I'm going to get some judgment for them that's going to take hours of my time. I'm going to
Mhm,
get that judgment against them. And then they're going to get some payment plan if the judge sees it that way. They're going to get some
mhm.
payment plan where they can pay me $5 a month for the next 2 years. That's
It
what
almost
so
doesn't seem worth it. I mean, I get it's a
but that's
guaranteed paycheck, but it sounds like a bigger headache than anything.
you hit the nail on the head. And that's why so many landlords, like 7 out of the top 10 landlords in my area won't do Section 8. 7 out of the top 10. And they don't do it because of all of this bullshit. And because and even funnier, you really have to want to help people this way because the rate of rent is lower for that tenant.
Right.
And here's the funniest part. We run analytics. 80% of my phone calls come from 17% of my tenants. Who are those 17%? 3 guesses, first 2 don't count. They're
Uh,
Section 8 tenants. 80% of my calls,
divorced
17% of my
moms,
tenant base.
divorced moms.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes, exactly. But
I
that's why the
mean,
numbers don't work. So when people are sitting there and like, oh, you're just a greedy landlord, dude, you don't know anything. You likely live in your mommy's basement and she likely charges you some rounding error for rent and she still does your laundry and she probably still reads you a bedtime story.
I want my mama to come and do my laundry.
Yeah.
Mama Tomato, if you're in chat, can you please come do my laundry and cook me dinner and all of that other, please,
Yeah.
please,
Right.
please. Can you
Exactly.
move
Very
back
nice.
to the East Coast, Mama? I love you. I miss you. Yeah, I tell
Yeah.
you what, there's like a loss of appreciation for what a mama truly does.
Oh, dear heavens.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
oh, it's so then she said no. Do you see this? She said
Love you? No. Yeah.
no.
Love you?
She
No.
me. She loves me. I can't wait for her to come out and visit me so she can make me some more food. I love you, mama. So okay, so then I mean, why? Why? Where's the incentive? Like, where is the incentive here to do all of this?
Truly you want to help people. Like that's like for every landlord, I believe, and one of the things that we teach is that we want diversification within our portfolio,
Uh-huh.
but you recognize that if you can give back, then it truthfully, like sowing
You're
the
giving
concept.
back, but you're giving I love the idea, but you're giving back to somebody who wouldn't even do it for anyone else.
That's not the measurement I'm using. I'm not using
Right,
the
but
measurement.
right, you're
Hey, listen, that's an
are
awesome
you an
idea.
you're an enabler. That's what you're doing.
We actually, well, so the funny story of kind of how we got here was we were always the ones that would take a percentage of units and try and help out people that were in desperate need.
Right.
The losses got too great.
Mhm.
The losses got too great. And so I just said, there's got to be some way that we can participate in helping people where there's at least some level of check and balance. And so I got into this program thinking that, and it's really just not there. My hope is that it turns around because in all honesty, working with some of the housing directors that I work with, they're amazing people and they really are there to help people. And so
Mhm.
I've called on them and said, I need help with this tenant. They're just not listing. They're not following the rules. Like we either need to, get them to course correct And so they're great. They'll reach out to the tenant and say, hey, so we hear this is going on. Is that the case? And they'll say yes. And they'll go through the conversation. They'll say, you need to either course correct or he's going to move forward with eviction because you're breaking rules that are in the lease. Right. So when they step in like that, there's authority there because they know that they're like, they would say to you, you're not paying my rent. You're just getting it from the government. Yeah, I get that. But there's a social contract. Like you need to do something here. Like you need, if you're doing nothing, all you need to do is follow the rules. The other thing too, is that with a lot of Section 8 tenants is that there's 3 times the amount of wear and tear on everything. They're home 24/7. They don't have jobs.
Yeah.
Oh, it gets worse.
Wealth Building comes in with a big 5, says people abusing the system is a problem. It's insane. A graduated system with needs-based testing helps ensure people who really need help can get it.
Exactly. That's all we want. And the other thing, like I said, if you take away the ability to get all of your rent covered, like if you are in that very small percentage, I'd say 90%, 95% of my tenants are completely well-bodied and able, and they could have a full-time job.
So the system's not working then.
No, but that's why I want it torn. That's why I want it torn down. That's why I want it pushed to the states where they can make their own decisions. And then we can actually work to fix the system where we say, hey, it's a hand up program, not a handout program. It's 2 years and it has diminishing returns over those 2 years. And that's enough time to get your act together. And then we could help that many more people get back in. And if you don't want to get back in, well, then at that point, you're choosing not to get back in. And your chance is done. Your chance is done. There's a reason they call them entitlements, my dear.
Oh my God. I just can't. I have a really, really big problem with handouts.
Agreed.
I have a really big problem with it. I understand help. Right. I need a little bit of help. Yeah. Help me, help myself. Yes. Right. But not when it's obviously being abused and overused and putting other people, like it puts you in a position where you are losing.
Yes.
Sure. Because why? Because they don't want to be an accountable person and stand on their own too. I love the concept of help. Yes. Right. But I get disgusted at people who abuse the help, and that doesn't make me feel good. Mrs. White Lady, interesting name, coming in with a big 10, says, hope 0 Section 8 people are taking notes, bro.
Honestly, it doesn't matter. I mean, I've said all of this, like, guys, I have a channel. I talk about this. I have 11,000 subscribers. I get 300,000 views a month. People know how I feel about this. And
I think she's saying taking notes in terms of how to like destroy something before the inspector comes, just so.
But even so, the issue always is we always eventually win. It's an elongated win, but we always eventually win. Mm-hmm. If somebody, so that person that went $7,000, she didn't lose her voucher right then, but she eventually down the road when she did it to somebody else, then she lost it. Oh. So like eventually we win, like you do enough of that bad stuff and eventually you get crushed. And that's a good thing. The downside is that, think of it this way. That was a mom of 3 kids.
Damn.
That was a mom of 3 kids. And guess what happened when we cleaned out her place? We found shit-covered mattresses.
Ew.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And no one's moving those out for us. Section 8 wasn't there unloading for us. We found shit-covered mattresses. We had to completely redo the unit. And we had to get rid of all their trash. We had $2,000 in dump fees.
You know what? If the government that is sending those checks and putting their stamp of approval on people who apply, if the government was held accountable for that kind of shit,
agreed,
then they probably would be a little more selective with who they let in, wouldn't they?
Well, I think that they would be more selective in who they let in, but they would be they would manage accountability of those people far better. Like they would care about it. Right now, they don't. Right now, it's just like, we got them in the program. We told them, we gave them what's called a voucher briefing. Now they know exactly what they need to do. Now go shop, kids. Go shop. Go find a unit.
I'm blown
So
away.
that's why we just want to fix the program. So yeah, like I like to talk about things that I know about, and yeah, fairly familiar with this program. And you know, it's too bad because I'd like to see a lot more people get the hand up and a lot fewer people get a handout.
I agree. And on that note, are you ready to meet your panel
Yeah, sure.
and have some fun? We
Sure.
know ducks here. I've
That's
got
okay.
a
I
few
like
other
duck.
fun ones and maybe somebody new, I think, back there. So I'm interested. Let's kick it off and have some fun. All right, let's go ahead and center us out and welcome everybody to the Raging Tomato. We've got one newcomer, friendly neighbor. How are you today?
What's up? How are you? Thank you so much for letting me come on and talk to people.
Absolutely. And Chuck, you've been here. Zers, you've been here. James, you've been here. And of course, we all know Duck. Welcome back, Duck. Hopefully, they don't boot you off the entire evening. But for my wallet's purposes, I hope they do. But I'm
Hey,
incentivized to hear.
maybe I'll, a little bribe, throw a $5 super chat, keep me on.
I mean, you can be bought back on, right? So it's matched dollar for dollar. If somebody sends $5 to boot you out, somebody can pay $5 to bring you back up. So we love the fun stuff here.
What?
However, the rules of this game. Oh, Grid's here. Hi, Grid. How you feeling?
Good. What's up, buddy?
Oh no!
I was over terrorizing another panel, but I saw this one opened up, and I was like, I'm not even sure what we're talking about, but I'm going to come over and I'm going to talk some shit.
Well,
Dude, I've heard your name on
go.
whatever so much.
Let's go, baby.
Well, Lumberjack comes from the Millennial Mike crew. So landlord to landlord, I'm sure. And I know you and Mike had it out on the whole Section 8 kind of concept.
really have
So
that.
I've worked Section 8 before.
I don't do Section 8s personally, but I don't disagree with people that do.
What's wrong with Section 8? What I didn't understand.
They just put it the last hour and a half.
Did you watch the show?
Well, it's the return.
I didn't hear a single political.
Wait.
Wait. I wasn't done, James. I didn't hear a single actual political or social opinion. That's kind of what I was expecting to hear. Was
What?
that I'm not just gonna think about my complaints and my small business first. I thought we were gonna talk about perhaps housing, the foundational economy.
No, we're
maybe
going to
this
talk
is
about how to
duck.
make money. Joe.
Let chat figure that out.
If you're not interested in making money, this is the wrong conversation for you.
Yep.
Who
You're
said
not going
that?
to do it in
I'm
Section
not
8.
interested in making money.
Who better to
That
talk
doesn't
about
make
their
any
personal
sense.
experience than someone who literally does Section 8 housing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and
Who
that's
else are you going to ask?
That was part of Lumberjack's whole opening statement was like, I live on experience and that's what I speak from.
And he's not saying not to
but
do it. He's literally talking about why he thinks it's a good moral thing to do it and why he wishes he could do it more.
That's
Yeah,
just how
I don't
bad
agree.
it
I don't
is.
totally.
Yeah.
I don't totally agree. The only reason I'll say that is, there's lots of examples where the people holding the purse weren't the ones that came up with the solution, right? You have the whole Carnegie empire. How do you
worked for Carnegie.
if you talk about the rail lines solving the rail problem and the energy problem in the United States, you don't talk about Andrew Carnegie and at some point in which he was participating. And so
When
He
you
didn't
tell your-
own
like
all
Steve
the.
Jobs
He
on
didn't own
stage?
all the rail lines.
Hold up.
when
Here's
sorry.
sorry, Lumberjack.
No, go
Here's the thought process, okay? Lumberjack had the thought process of, Trump's new reform plans and how they operate with the social programming and whether they're cutting and are they just going to do grants and handing it back to the states and so on and so forth. he's giving firsthand experience of how this affects him as a landlord when those Section 8 housing, social programs, handouts, and so on and so forth are affected, and how they can do better or how they could go worse. He's giving you the firsthand knowledge from all of his experiences and why it works that way, right? We can sit here and look at like, oh, well, this X, Y, and Z in this bigger grand scheme of things concept and how it affects the nation as a whole. But we're bringing it down to the one personal level of how it operates in that aspect. Does that make sense, Duck?
So what I just said was that, yeah, there is that bigger story arc. And so like, I would love to hear lived experience, but it sounded like there's a mix of personal anecdote and business lessons.
No, I mean, you
and
wax
so I didn't
poetic
hear a
about tying
political
your
opinion
shoes in the
about
morning,
Section
Doc.
8 in general or
Was you
housing.
not
Sorry.
listening
Duck,
to the
Chuck, I was listening.
conversation?
What do
everybody
you
else
think it
heard
was?
what I had to say and understood it. I don't like, you know, I've now watched 4 of these, and I get that you like just like wax poetic about tying your shoes in the morning. Practical things have to happen on a daily basis. And the fact of the matter is that I gave a firsthand, this is exactly how the program works where I am. This is how it works. These are the processes. And so people that are getting into it, Grid not doing it, I think that's
There you go,
awesome.
buddy.
I think what?
Yeah, to talk about people getting into it, right?
Yeah,
You're not
so I
talking
think-
about
so-
politics.
so I
That's what I
think-
said again.
Yeah, I think
That's another L, bro.
What?
Yeah,
The
Doug,
hell,
I
Doug?
got W's
Good night,
all over you,
Doug.
bro. I got W's all over you. You and your
Yeah,
bad
and-
tank top, I got
Stop
W's
it.
all over you.
I
So it
work in
doesn't-
Section 8. It's
Let
not
me-
no
let me-
cakewalk.
Pardon me, gentlemen, but let me clarify something, Duck. Lumberjack is the guest of the evening. Him and I worked out the topic and how we wanted to have the conversation this evening. Was Duck a part of that conversation?
No.
Was he part of that text thread? Was he involved
That I
in
saw.
setting this up, planning how we're going to do this, how we're going to guide the conversation and where we want to go with it? Were you part of that?
I don't recall participating at all in any of it.
Exactly. So you coming in and saying like this, I thought this conversation was supposed to be this. Why is it this? Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't make any sense to me because you weren't a part of that conversation to begin with. So
Yeah,
if,
it's not-
if this panel isn't the panel for you tonight, then you're, maybe it's just not the panel for you tonight. If you thought it was going to be something else,
I wanted to have a
come up
conversation
here.
about it. Sarah, I wanted
Yeah,
to talk politics.
You're
Okay.
wanting to go geopolitical, and it
sounded
didn't
like
go
it
there.
sounded like Lumberjack did as well.
Sometimes, Doc, we kind of steer a little away from politics. Sometimes we have conversations about relationships. Sometimes we have conversations
cool.
about stupid people. But tonight,
Listening.
like, we start at the upper level of like, there's a political thing happening, but we want to bring it down to the individual level. And that's what Lumberjack has been doing all night. And he's been a most
I'm
excellent
sorry.
guest.
For Sarah's honor, for Sarah's sake, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Lumberjack. I'm sorry for cutting you off, Chuck. I think I'm getting booted in a minute anyways, but
to add to that, you seem to be looking for a win a lot, and really Sarah and Lumberjack were the people who were originally up on discussion, debate, however you want to title it, and
Right.
if anybody's going to have a win or a lose, it would be either Sarah or Lumberjack. Really nobody here on panel.
Exactly.
From my perspective, I
know
just want
what that
to
has
give you
to do
guys
with
knowledge based on what the process is, because I think it's really difficult. I think it's really difficult for people to understand, that with everything. So Silver Eagle, like maybe shut up, listen, and learn. The idea is that you understand what you're getting into, because people that are getting into Section 8, they can Google it, and Googling it doesn't really tell you a whole lot. Experience is what teaches you. When you look at any resume, the resume doesn't say, can you Google shit? The resume says, what's your experience in this field? Because experience is relevant. So from my perspective, it's about bringing to light, this is what the process is. Here's where I believe the injustices are. Here's what I believe it can get better and being fixed as. And it's not about going back to, well, this is what the Carnegies did. It's not about that. It has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. It has everything to do with the price, with the concept of this is how it's done today. What's proposed is that it's going to be brought to the States, and that I believe will mitigate some of the current disasters that we have and remove a lot of red tape Oh dear God.
What about a transaction? What about a transaction, Lunder? Are you not? You don't believe in Austrian economics at all? I didn't hear you talk. I heard you complain.
Doug,
We're
I'm just
not in
rich, bro. I don't know
Austria.
how I
About a
got here. I'm just
transaction.
rich. I don't understand
Here's-
Austrian economics. Bad
Here's
news.
what
didn't
we're
ask you
gonna
that.
do,
Hey,
Duck. Here's
You
what
think
we're
I
gonna do,
am?
Duck. I want you to go
Where am I?
backstage for 20
Where am
minutes.
I?
Thanks to
Okay.
Wealth Building Journey. He says, time out, Duck, please. Let's hear everyone else speak.
Later,
I
bro.
want you to go backstage and listen to the conversation
nice.
and maybe take it in, soak it in. And then when you come back up in 20 minutes, if the chat allows it, think about what you're gonna say then. And but soak in.
I will
what
do that. I'm gonna make a vegan hot dog while I'm off stage, Sarah.
Sounds
That
appropriate.
sounds like
the
a good
hell is
deal.
a vegan hot dog? How do you make a vegan hot dog?
3 guesses first, we don't count.
If I may
don't
answer,
really know.
as a person that's seen vegan hot dogs, they're made out of plants.
Well, yeah.
But like,
You know, the best place to dine and dash is a vegan restaurant because they don't have the energy to chase you.
Well done.
that was
That's
good.
true.
That
I would
was good.
say what I'd love to hear Chuck's perspective. He said he worked with Section 8. I'd love to hear that.
I worked Section 8, did maintenance for a couple of outfits.
Yeah.
And there's this one time we got a call that the electric was out in their house. I show up at the house, I think it was like 8, 9 o'clock at night. I go over there, go in, and you could see where the wires used to be in the house. They completely pulled the wiring out of every wall. And I called the owner back, the manager, whatever you want to call it. And I said, this is what we got. Apparently they took the copper and scrapped it. He says, well, I don't know what to tell you. He says, by contract, I have to make it habitable.
That's right.
So I worked all night and got electric back to him. And it was like, so what's your recourse? He says, I got none. This was in Illinois. He said, Illinois, you can take them to court, but like you said, what are you going to sue them for? If they got nothing, you're going to get nothing. You're going to spend more money suing, and you're not going to get them thrown out like that.
Yeah, that's true. I think the funny thing is that they probably got literally $30 for the wire that they sold.
Probably.
And it was thousands with labor. It was thousands to repair with labor and material and everything else.
Yeah.
Lumberjack, I'm sure you know this. Is there like insurance you can get that mitigates that? Like if you do Section 8, is it like prohibitively expensive?
It's prohibitively expensive. So that's a great question. Friendly. That's a great question. They do make it. It's very expensive. So there's kind of 3 types of policies. There's the homeowner policy that you have on your house. Then there's something that you can get on a rental dwelling that they call a fire policy, which basically just means the house goes up in flames. They'll give you a replacement value if that's what you signed up for. And then there's the next thing, which is, I believe, it's to a certain level, it's kind of predatory. It's called landlord insurance. The problem is that most landlords make 6-7% on an asset. So if they're when they're first starting, they're making 6 or 7% typically,
or negative.
Could be. Yeah. It's true. There are people that teach that. They call that the appreciation play, where they're just like, hey, buy it and it's going to appreciate over time. And that's true. Over a 20-year period, the housing market's always appreciated. But, from the fantastic collapse in 08 and 09, there's some markets that literally took 14 years to come back. And 12 years to come back. Sadly, I was in one of those where I had an asset that I just couldn't get rid of. And I just was like, as soon as that thing got above blue water, I'm like, let's get rid of that asset like right now. But to your point, it's kind of like what I would call legislating out the sun. It's possible to do it, but at what cost? And so the idea is that it's almost always going to bring on a loss if you're buying that type of expensive policy, because it's, they're counting on you're needing them to chip in and pay something. And the challenge is that then they can say, we're not going to renew your policy right after they pay something out. But very often it doesn't work in your favor. And so the biggest challenge with those policies is they're very expensive. They're very often cost prohibitive. They very often look at reasons to not reimburse you. Oh, no, we don't cover that. And so then it's the fight with the insurance companies to get that covered. So what we teach is we actually teach people, here's how you better qualify tenants that won't do that sort of stuff. And that's really what it comes down to, which is teaching people how to better vet tenants that won't do those sorts of things. So for us, we've had those things happen, but the way that we count a tenant year is a tenant's in a building for a year, that's 1 tenant year. If there's 3 adults in that unit, then that's 3 tenant years. So I have over 5,000 tenant years. And we've had an occurrence where it was like that kind of catastrophic thing, maybe 7 or 8 times in 5,000 tenant years.
So I'm not sure what state you're in, but in Oregon, we've used our state right to vote that landlords cannot rent a place with it being underinsured or uninsured. It has to be insured to a specific level.
Yeah, so that's 2 different types of insurances. Just so you know, so it's 2 different types of insurances. The house is insured to the level of replacement value, but what they do is the insurance that Friendly is basically referring to is like the get out of jail free insurance is what we call it. Where if a tenant does a bunch of damage, like we can just call the insurance company and they'll come in and we'll fix it and then they'll reimburse that. That is not required in any state because, you know, in a number of states, it's actually considered kind of predatory.
That makes sense. I mean, it costs a lot to fix damage that some random tenant did, but that doesn't necessarily link only to people who are tenants under a social structure. As far as any tenant can rip out all your wires and leave you out thousands. And if they are a person that doesn't have any money, you're still left with the same scenario of trying to bleed a turnip dry.
Yeah, so I actually had an instance on a house in Colorado. It's nice, 3.2. It was built in 04, I think.
Good vintage.
Yeah, and first group of tenants we had in there, great people, barely even had to clean the place when we re-rented it. Second group, same thing. Everything's great.
What was the term of them? Great, if you don't mind me asking.
At this time is like I'm kind of a long-term guy. Most of my people stay 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. Yep. Same.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and the way I price my rent is I look what my comps are and I go $100 under. Whatever anybody else is asking, especially Progress or American Homes for Rent, something like that. I'll just do $100 under them. I got people lined up.
Sure.
So, so I get this one tenant who, on paper, perfect tenant. Just woman and her kid, and at some point she had a boyfriend move in, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, we're cool, everything's great. But for some reason, that she would call and complain that the AC wouldn't work, and I'd say, okay, call this number and have the guy come out.
Yeah.
Never call the guy.
Okay.
Call me back. Hey, the AC's out. I'm like, yeah, I gave you the number. Call the guy. He'll come out.
Okay.
She would never have anybody come out. Okay. So there were tenants for 3 years. Never late. Not one time.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yep.
Everything's great. And then all of a sudden we decide that we're either going to sell that property because it's now almost doubled in value.
Sure.
I mean, literally, I paid
time for an exit.
Yeah, I paid $230 for it. I sold it for almost $500. So I literally doubled. So time to get out. But we could have also just pulled some equity out of it. And you know, just bought another property, whatever. There were a couple of decisions needed to be made because we only had like a year or two left on the loan. We were on a 15-year, and we always do 15 years if we can do it, if we can manage it. So, so we send in an appraiser. We call him up. Hey, there's this guy going to come by. He's an appraiser. He's just going to look through the house, give us a value so we can make a decision which way we're going to go. He comes back with an appraisal of $24,000 in damage.
Ooh.
Whoa.
You're drug dealers, right?
Huh? No.
Drug dealers?
I don't know, but possibly.
That's what it was. They probably repiped the system and vented it, and that's what was coming.
We'll get there. So my wife and I are literally sitting at the table trying to decide, what do we do? Do we evict these people? Do we what's our play here? And we get an email from the tenant saying we're moving out next month. Because they were on month to month anyway. And they're like, yeah, we're out. Fair. I'm like, all right, cool. See you. And so they moved out. We got people in there. We had to do just so much. A lot of the work had to be done. Like all the carpets had to be replaced. Every floor surface had to be replaced. There was a lot of drywall work. I don't know what they were doing in the upstairs bathroom, but it had rusted the ceiling fan shut. So I don't know if they were taking like exceeding long showers. Or
humidity,
whatever.
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, from the humidity. And there was just a lot of damage like that, mostly caused by dogs. Apparently they were only supposed to have one dog. They had 4. That happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then the concrete had kind of heaved. They had not told us about any of this. So we were like, the front steps had a crack and a kind of a dip to them. I'm like, well, you should have said something about that, because we would have had somebody come out and fix that.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say anything about any of this, but and so it just adds up, and so we're about 28,000 into it, and we have the inspector come out, and he looks at the panel, and we had to replace the entire electrical panel because it looks like they had at least tried to run a grow operation in the basement.
Knew it. Yep.
And overloaded the panel.
Yep. Knew it.
And they hadn't put in the whatever extra wire, whatever they had pulled out, but they had left. And the other clue is there was a hole out by the air conditioner where they were venting.
Yes.
So we totally restored the house, $30-something thousand, and then we sold it, and came out ahead. I mean, obviously we came out ahead, but and bought some other property. But that's my only really truly bad tenant story.
That's honestly pretty lucky. I know two close friends who their families have rental properties, and they've both been left with 6-figure bills after a bad tenant left. Like they just go ranked competitive. The one person took an axe to the walls. They were gonna him and his wife got divorced. She was kicking him out.
Wow.
Peed everywhere. Peed on as much stuff. Pooped on it. Was.
I think Lumberjack is right. The vetting of the tenant is really critical.
Personally.
And so,
like doing it yourself and not contracting it out.
I always do it. My wife always wants to contract this stuff out. I'm like, nope, no, I do it. And I have kind of a process, and I like to have like 4 or 5 good potentials. And
of course.
And I just have a system the way I do it, and it's worked so far. I will eventually get that one tenant that just completely hoses me. But hopefully it'll be a long.
No, good one. You were mentioning. Sorry. You were mentioning that you were a landlord that has chosen not to accept the Section 8 housing, and I believe that gives you a lot more ability to vet the individuals that are renting from you personally. Whereas if you've chosen, which I believe it's a choice, I don't think anybody's forcing anybody to take Section 8 housing. If you've chosen to then take Section 8 housing, reciprocate.
Right. So
if anybody was to vet them because they're accepting Section 8, they wouldn't necessarily come up as somebody who would be rentable. That's why they're under Section 8.
Not necessarily. No, because we use the same criteria to vet a Section 8 tenant as we do a market tenant, and so it's the fair way to do it. So we do it exactly the same way. So what we require is that if they're responsible for any portion of the rent, that they make 3x that portion in order to pay those bills, because we don't want to force them into a hardship. That's the first thing. Second thing is there is a credit requirement. And actually, Section 8 essentially forced us to lower our credit requirement, because I went through 100 applications and there were maybe 4 of them that were over 620. Maybe 4.
Another thing that hasn't really been addressed as of yet. So at what position does everybody hold on panel? It'd be nice to know. As far as, do you believe that these social constructs should exist or not exist entirely, or is pretty much everybody in agreement that some level of social aid in this manner is needed?
And before you all answer, I'd like to get to a few super chats, and then we'll pick up right back to that question, Zers. Tiki Taki with the big 5, he says, it sounds like investing in low yield stocks would be more profitable.
That's what all my friends that are still working think.
And Boxing with a big 5 says, as a guy that is saving for his first house, can we talk about how someone goes about buying a first house? Any advice would be?
Yeah, sure. I mean, really, it really kind of backs up into what your goals are. You know, from me and from my goal, it was I couldn't afford where I wanted to live. Flat out, couldn't afford it. I was like, I want to live here. And the guy laughs. He goes, yeah, so do I, but you can't afford it just like I can't. And I was like, all right, well, then what do I do about that? And so I literally started looking for a roommate. And so I did something called a house hack, where I basically found the property. I had the money to put down, but I didn't have the monthly income to cover the mortgage where it needed to be with the multiplier. So I said to him, I said, hey, sign this lease and you can move in and I'll buy that 2-bedroom and we're roommates. And so that's what I did. I did that 9 times in 13 years. That means I moved 9 times in 13 years. But that's how I started my company, was moving into the places, fixing them up, making them nice, and then moving into the next, then refinancing it, moving into the next one. And then doing the same thing there, rinse and repeat. And so I did that 9 times in 13 years. And, every single time we were taking over a dilapidated property. I didn't know the first thing about being a carpenter, but had to figure it out. And that's before YouTube really existed. YouTube, I thought, was only for music. And so I played a lot of music on YouTube while I did a lot of that work and just tried to learn. And I would pay contractors to come in and do stuff. And I'm like, I'm just going to be your helper. That's all. I'm just going to be your helper because I want to learn what they were doing. And so then I watched them a couple of times on a couple of projects. And I was like, I can do that now myself. Just need to buy that tool. And so my advice would be, it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to just and only be a homeowner, then the idea is that you're probably looking to buy some sort of an entry level, 3-2, like what Grid was talking about, and live in the area that you want. And so then it really just comes down to a mathematics equation, making sure that you're not overspending and that you're overcommitting. That was what part of the great financial crisis was. If you're looking to actually use that and try to parlay that into being able to help people and do affordable housing and that sort of stuff, then my channel is a perfect one to watch, and we teach people how to do that. So it depends on what your goal is.
And his channel should be linked in the title of the live stream here. It should be linked in the title of it if you want to go and subscribe over there. And because I think you give a lot of talking points on.
We do.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is, when you're buying your first home, make sure you find a really credible inspector that actually has a construction background, not a background in filling out a report. You want to find an actual construction person. That's the first thing. Second thing is, people very often skip doing a sewer and septic inspection or a sewer line inspection. It's about $250, $300. And when you find a problem, it's an $8,000 to $15,000 problem. You just pray that it's a $300 gamble worth taking. So the biggest advice I can give any homeowner that wants to buy their own home or even a rental property is, make sure that the inspector that you're hiring has a construction background and understands construction, not how to fill out reports, and that they understand what a sewer septic inspection looks like, because that is a massive cost that can sink you.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Very true.
Speedy Lee with the big 5 says, what positive reform should Trump and the states and local governments make regarding Section 8 or housing in general?
Speedy Lee, I really appreciate the question. I think it's really thoughtful. And I think that's, Sarah, it's like a lot what you and I talked about, which is having a level of accountability. And then when there is that level of accountability, if they know, hey, if I fuck this place up, I'm going to lose my voucher and I'm out of the program forever. That's really scary. And I can't imagine any mom or dad being so angry at the landlord that they would put their kids at risk. So
I don't know how it
there's
is
other
in-
countries that have found solutions to that.
Sorry?
So I can't think of like specific examples right now, but if you look it up, many European countries, the way they have solved the issue of like low income tenants treating their property like shit is they just have taken the income requirements, like minimum income requirements, things like that. They just took the income requirements and made them higher. So like now you'll have somebody that's making, let's say they got into it making 20K a year. Well, by the time they can move out, they're making 70K a year. In America, you would get kicked out around 40K. But the solution that other countries have found is just increase how much money you're allowed to make and stay in housing. As long as you do that, people don't look at it as, oh, this is a part-time place. It doesn't matter what I do to it. They're looking at it as a long-term place to stay.
What other countries are you talking about?
I want to say Norway. Like Norway would probably be.
I wouldn't follow Norway.
Don't they have like a pretty high tax rate too, though? Like they're up in like 60%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But to his point though, there's an element of that can work, and the element of that, where I believe that it has to be different, is a phased in, phased out program where it's a time set limit. This is how much time you have to kind of get it going. Because what I don't want to create is more people dependent on the government to deliver, and that's also going to continue to. The difference between the rich and the poor is not income. The difference between the rich and the poor is assets. It's income producing assets. That's the difference.
Well,
you look at a
that's
renter.
the reason why these policies have worked in other countries, because if you're allowed to make, let's say, 70K a year and stay in public housing, you're more inclined to save a bigger portion of your monthly income you would be spending on rent, and you'll get a house sooner.
The problem is they stay in these programs. I'd love to see the statistics. Admittedly, I haven't studied Norway housing. Not being rude, just I haven't studied it, so I don't know.
No, you're perfectly fine.
But I can tell you that the thing that I want most is I want freedom for people. I want them to have freedom to fail.
And I feel like you and I are coming from the same place, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem that I see in public housing. Public housing in America, it is treated as if you're down on your luck, this is where you go. But once you're back up on your luck, then you leave, right? The way it's treated in other countries, it's not a place where you're down on your luck. It's a place you go to when you're down on your luck. But once you're out, you can stay there. You can go get another apartment. It's up to you. You have that freedom. You have that choice. In America,
we landlord in Norway saying that it's not like that in Norway.
Yeah, for me and from my perspective, I just want less and less government. I want personal responsibility. I want personal accountability. And so I believe in hands up. I don't believe in hands out. And so I'm all about, helping that person, for a year term and seeing them get through whatever problem that they're dealing with. And that's where I used to help out a lot of people over that year. But I can tell you, we got burned so often that we had to go kind of the public route and say, the way that we're doing it's not working. I'm a pretty sharp guy. So if the way that we're doing it's not working, I need to align with somebody that is doing it right. And while there are a lot of Section 8 nightmares, there are plenty of people that are very successful with it. The thing that I would like to see change, one of the things that we do is we actually do disabled vet housing. It's something I'm super passionate about because these guys go off and they risk everything and they come back and they get their balls busted. Like, what the fuck? And then they're like living in some dipshit gross place. And then they get discharged, and now what? Like they're spending the rest of their life doing catch up. So for me, we actually do a lot of disabled vet housing where there's programs that help those guys out. And that's what's near and dear to my heart. But the idea is I have to have a successful business in order to allow for a lower cost to that tenant. That's just what I have to do.
There was a question on the table. There was a question on the table. We never got to it.
I'm sorry.
There was a question on the table that I.
What was the question?
I think the question was: do y'all believe that these programs should be cut, or you believe these programs?
Well, actually, before that, the guy next to me asked me why I didn't do Section 8.
Okay. Well, I thought
what the question was that the super chats ended at their super chats, so whatever, they got to be read and whatnot. But the question was that removal of these social constructs such as food stamps and housing benefits, or are you more for a reform that works better?
I'm not smart enough to know that.
Well, let me answer that question for myself.
Can you not keep it on topic, dude?
how's everybody doing this evening?
Good, Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. My thing is it should be a reform. I work in. I have 32 people in my house, and I work with people disabled, and people could be military, they could be substance abuse or whatever. One of the things I found out about this situation, I did my footwork and had advocacy on the street, but when I got into these houses, I found out why do you have the problems out there in the street. So I think these programs need to be reformed. Let me just give you a case of what I'm talking about. The average person who's homeless, runs through 8 to 9 phones a year. Now think about that. These phones are costing the U.S. government $2.8 billion a year as far as phones. Now, how many phones do everybody on this panel lose a year? You're not most certainly losing 8 phones a year.
What's your point, dude? Just get to your point. Just get to your fucking point. You're selling a point. Just sell it.
I get where he's saying.
You say you want me to do what to your wife?
I get where he's going. He's going with the people steal these phones.
That's what you said. You want to do what?
I get where you're going.
Okay, good. So I'm just saying. I said that due to the fact, Sarah, that I didn't think anything I said for him to at one point or another want to be a comedian. I was saying
you
things.
Want Sarah to be a shoulder for you to cry on, dude? Get to it, dude.
Oh, okay,
I was
okay.
Listening, Jay. You were making an excellent point. Please continue, Jay.
Okay, and what I'm saying is, what I have found out in this, what I found out in this business, not only there's homeless people you have to deal with these social programs, you go have to deal with the nurses, the doctors, the medical field, all of this, because I helped a vet out who was on 14 different pills, and that guy should not have been on one. And so this is the waste that this administration will really have to dig in, and it's on every level because everybody's making money with this. If you look at the medical supplies, you got people with walkers who don't need walkers, and you got all this stuff is just really draining this country of resources that could be applied to other parts of problems of this country, and that's all I wanted to say.
Or the people who actually need it.
It's rough out there, Jay.
Let me get through a few more. Kyle Dorn sends a big 5. Says Matt has saved me tens of thousands of dollars with his teachings.
Thanks, Kyle.
That's a nice, a nice testimony.
Yeah,
I like that.
Appreciate that, Jay. I appreciate what you had to say, and I honestly I completely agree. You know, it's tough for somebody. For me, it's just tough because I want to help, but I just don't know how to help. And all my expectation is when I do help, that it actually makes a difference, right? Like I'm willing to work hard and help make a difference, but I just got to make sure it's making a difference. Because if I'm just shoveling shit against the tide, like I got better things to do. So somebody in your spot is somebody that, you know, I like to talk to the boots on the street and understand what's going on. So I talk to my maintenance guys. I talk to my contractors all the time. Like I'm not an ivory tower guy. I'm on site all the time. And I like that because I want to see what they're saying. I want to hear what they have to say. I still take tenant calls. Got a pretty big portfolio to take tenant calls, in all honesty, but I still want to hear what's going on with them. I see every single ticket that's logged for my entire company. I see every single one on my phone because I care about what the result is. So when Grid said you don't outsource that, so to answer the super chat that Speedy B? Sorry, I think Speedy B. The super chat Speedy Lee. Sorry. So the question that you asked and what I answered previously was, sending it down to local government will eliminate a lot of the bureaucracy and a lot of the heavy lifting at the top. What Jay just spoke of is a lot of the heavy lifting, right? Is that there's a bunch of decisions being made up in this tier up here with no actual touching the patient, with no actually touching the person. Jay knows better what all these people need than anybody else. Jay knows better.
Don't you think your job should be eliminated altogether? We should just get rid of your job.
You get a federal earmark.
Speaking of getting rid of things, the Wealth Building Journey sent a big 20 and said, for Joseph, disrespect is a no-go. Chill out for a while. He's sending you to the backstage. I'm going to set a timer. You got 20 minutes back there, Joseph.
Now, when it comes down from the federal level, what happens is, from the research I've done and the people I've worked with, it comes from the federal level, except there's designations that 20% has to be spent be spent for mobility equipment. 20% has to be spent for disability fix-ups on a house or something. And if that money, if they don't use that money up, the money goes away. So in order to get more money, they spend that money senselessly, like what Jay was saying about everybody gets a walker, because if they don't spend it, then they're going to lose what funding they had. It's a
they
stupid
reduce the funding.
setup.
No, you're
Yeah.
exact. I mean, that's why China has these ghost cities. You know, that's one of their things is ghost cities. And, you know, when people were reporting these amazing earnings because, you know, the country bought, 3 million washers and they put them in a bunch of storage areas because they were trying to goose the economy. So Chuck, what you're saying is exactly right. I think that that's indicative, right? When I have to set up a bunch of guardrails around a director that had decision-making capability, they shouldn't be in the role because they don't have what it takes to make the right decision.
Exactly.
That's the biggest issue that you find at that federal level is that they're not empowered to make the right decision. They're trying to fit quotas and different number spends to then check boxes, as opposed to saying, like, if I went to Jay, I'd say, Jay, what do you need, man? And he'd say, Matt, this is what I need. And I'd be like, all right, cool. Like, this is how we're going to basically get that spend out there over the next 12 months. Let's do what's needed immediately, what we can do in 90 days and what we can do in 6 months. Then let's see how that starts to take root and what results we're seeing. And based on the results, we then tweak the strategy to get the best result out of it.
That makes sense.
That's what happens. That's
Chuck,
how winning organizations are run.
And Chuck makes a good point. Even when I was working for the Cobb County and Island, Georgia, working for the fleet maintenance, they have everything quoted in a book that you go in a book and you got 13 hours to do this or 14 hours of doing this. So if you finish the job in 2 hours, you're sitting at a job that they can't allow you to do anything else because it'll upset the book at the end of the year. So this is what the government do. They give out this money, and if you don't spend it, what they usually do, government do never want any money back. Once the federal government gives you money, they don't want it back. But what they do is, for the next fiscal year, they take that off top. Right, they take that off the top. And so this is where the greed comes in. If I'm a doctor and I got vacation coming up soon and I know I can get some money from a pharmaceutical company, I'm going to go write some prescription that I just talked to a person for 3 minutes and I'm going to give them 14 prescriptions because nobody's going to say anything.
Right.
That's number one. Nobody's going to say anything.
And how much time do you have to see that patient, right, Jen?
Right.
Like,
3 minutes, 4 minutes.
I would say
3
that's
minutes.
a big
You got to be
issue.
out, bro. So it's whatever I write is what you're going to take. And if that's some funny pills, that's what it is.
And then I had to deal with these people at their house.
Yes.
And then so before I learned how to diffuse a lot of that is like in California where I'm at, you can call the health department. They're the ones who are in charge of doctors. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? The health departments. So when they just start describing all these pills to one patient and the patient is starting to go cuckoo, you understand? Because we got to understand, in this business right here, there's two things happening. Usually people who's homeless usually have some kind of mental breakdown or finances. But either way, when they get out there on the street, if they had a mental problem, they're going to have a drug problem to go along with it.
That's
because that's the way the street hustle go. If you have a drug problem, by the time you get on that street, you're going to have a mental problem because the doctors are going to make sure you're going to have it. So you're going to end up with the same clients on the other end. So this is what I've been fighting for the last 4 years, to try to get somebody to look into these things. And nobody wants to lose that extra money that they're doing. And everybody wants to point fingers at everybody else, what they're doing. I offer a home for people that most people don't give up on. That's number one. And they could be veterans. I mean, I have had 4 or 5 veterans in my house, and people just give up on them.
So basically, what you're arguing is if we don't fix our broken people, then we can't really expect our society to function properly. And if we don't want to dump the money into fixing our broken people, then how should we ever expect those broken people to be healed?
But we got to do it adequately. That's the problem.
That's right.
That's the problem. We got to get it from the top. There's got to be rules, regulations, and guidelines. And then guidelines have to be straight across the board. So you can get rid of the waste, the overspending, and the gouging of the government.
No,
When you give $100 to the Red Cross, how much of that actually hits the people that are being affected?
They only have to give like
15%.
20% or something like that.
15% versus when you get do the administration cost.
It's actually closer to 7.
Okay.
So if I'm giving $100,
it's low.
If I'm giving $100, 7's going to hit the ground.
Is
That's
that just
why-
because the admin and work behind
Yes,
it?
Yes, it's unbelievably burdensome, the stuff that they have there. So here's this is why so Jay, I don't care if you like me, but I like you, and there's nothing you can do to make me not like you.
I like you too. I like what you're saying. That's why I came up.
What I want to see is people in Jay's position. I want to see those people empowered. There has to be some level of oversight, sure, to make sure that Jay's not out there buying his next, Gallardo Lamborghini. Even though he looks pretty tall, so he probably wouldn't fit. But there has to be some level of oversight there. But I need when I was an executive, I empowered my people, and then I monitored what their how they carried themselves with what they were given. They were always given enough rope to hang themselves or to swing wildly. And the goal was if they didn't swing, so if they didn't swing wildly, then we tried to tweak and we tried to make that adjustment. But that's where that federal level, so people keep on asking, that is what the message is you get rid of the feds taking care of all this stuff. You push it down to the state level, and then there's much fewer layers. You look at the most successful organizations, and they're the ones that are the most flat. They don't have 47 layers between the first worker and the CEO.
That goes back to you were talking about giving it to the state level, and if you go and you really look up the information, you'll find that in the 60s there was a food program. It functioned all the way up until 64 when it became a federal food program. And the reason why it became a federal food program is because states were not able to, especially states that are having a food crisis anyway, weren't able to solve their food crisis by, I guess there was a voucher program where you would pay $1 and you'd get X amount back. And then after so much money, you would there wasn't the money to dump into the system. So the systems were falling apart all across the country. People were starving. So then came along 1964. I can't remember which president it was, but signed into law that it was then state controlled and state regulated. Federal controlled and federal regulated, so that they could then determine which states which states need more funding, which states need less funding. And this has pretty much continued to progress throughout our history. And in 2023 or 2024, I'm not exactly sure, they extended, 2016 was, I believe, the first time that the able-bodied working adult law became into effect. And the able-bodied were, right, there was a version of it, but the actual wording, I believe, came around 2013. And then this has been extended just recently as 2023 to make it more strengthened by an exact number of hours that they have to look for work. And this is also extended over to the Section 8. That is what happened in 2023 when Biden signed over a law that stated that people under Section 8 also have to follow this able-bodied working adult rule. So it's not like there's people that are slipping the system. There's people that are slipping the system by saying they're working for Jack Joe, and Jack Joe doesn't exist. But
yeah, they're just
very, very limited in scope because of the requirements to reapply constantly. It's a lot harder for Jack Joe Blow to keep going through the system as a person if they're not actually a person.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is that they're not enforced. That's the first thing. The second thing is that's why you don't have to look at these programs only expanding forever. If you make them timed out programs, they grow a lot slower if you put people on a program for 2 years. And then we can then jump in and trying to figure out what's going on. But I think that's the problem, is that when people get on these lifetime programs, all the cost of that program does is grow. Biden actually approved 120,000 additional vouchers in 4 years. It was the greatest expansion of housing since the last Democratic president. It's this massive spend. And the issue is that if you're not actually manning the hen house, then stop putting money into it. Like, we need accountability there, because I know that there's plenty of money where Jay could get the money that he needs to help out those 34 people in a meaningful way, because he's putting the time in their face, in front of them every single day. And that's going to beat out what any bureaucrat can ever do or think or figure out. So it's about putting the money where it belongs. And when you put it closer to the problem, the reason that so much broke in the financial crisis was because there was a disconnection from the risk to the reward. And that was that I could go get a loan with stated income. I could say I make $400,000 a year, and that the guy would take that. And it was greed on all parts. It was greed by the banks. It was greed by people that wanted their own homes. It was greed by the mortgage brokers. It was greed by everybody, because they were all willing to lie to kick the can down the road and have people not completely understand exactly what the ramifications were. So when you disconnect the accountability or the consequence from the task being done, that's when you get a dislocation every single time. So I want to see the programs fixed where there's a lot less federal, there's a lot more pushing it down to states, and then there's the states having to be accountable back to the feds, but a much thinner layer of, here are the 13 metrics that we measure. Private business does it every fucking day. Here's the 15 metrics that we measure, and this is where you got to hit. And it's not about spending, it's about efficacy of the spend.
So,
and allow me, Grid, just to get through a few more of these, if you don't mind. Sarcastic Warlock in with the big 5 says, I never thought I'd miss talking about ending preborns, but Grid 1 Landlord story time is making me desperately wish I had a coat hanger. That's so nice.
That makes 2 of us for you, Sarcastic.
PTO for life with the big 20. The essential service landlords provide housing and deserve fair pay like any business. Section 8 is a lifeline for many honest tenants who use it responsibly. Generalizing them all isn't fair and only fuels harmful stereotypes. Wow.
True.
And I think that's what he said. He have these stories of hard stories, and then he has these nightmare stories, and then he has these stories of people being very successful.
Absolutely.
I mean, I run through hundreds of clients sometime in a year to get 34, 32. You see what I'm saying? But the ones that I have to pass on is beyond the services that I can offer. And they really need nurses, and they need doctors. And so I try to tell the hospital when they release these people that I need to talk to the social worker before you release these people. I need to be talking to the doctor who's going in there and doing their evaluation, because I'm the person who's spending 24/7 with them. And I can tell you what their ups and downs, their triggers, and what they're doing. But you coming in there and trying to make an assessment in 2 minutes and give a person 14 drugs where that person is tranquilized throughout my house, and for whatever reason he mixes medication, now he's turning out to be a wild dog. So we don't have all these stories all the time. But what I'm trying to say is there should be better guidelines for the federal government. Say we're going to have these guidelines, we're going to release this money to the state, and then states have guidelines, the city has guidelines and stuff like that. You give more control. But what has usually happened in California is when people go use social programs, then they can always go to the city or the state and say the federal guidelines is not like this, and you go have to give it to me like this, or you go have to do this. And that's where the problem comes in, because now you're turning the mother against the father.
Yeah, to answer PTO's question, I completely agree. I think the challenge is that, again, my own experience, and with dozens and dozens of landlords that I work with, actually hundreds, let's be honest, it's hundreds of landlords that I work with. The fact of the matter is that there is a higher occurrence rate. There just is. And so the idea is having the ability to weed out the bad seeds, because if they were a market tenant, 30 days and they're gone. But because they're a housing tenant, there's many more steps to it. So my only concern is it's not to paint Section 8, because Section 8 isn't always the single mom with 3 kids from 3 different dads that, is got $5,000 worth of benefits. That's the extreme. But if I look at a number of the portfolios that I look over and review with people, they have a higher incident rate per tenant with a Section 8 tenant than they do with a non-Section 8 tenant. And very often it's due to a lack of enforcement of the rules within the program.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And just for everyone to know, and I'll hand it back to you, Grid.
Thank you.
The Raging Tomato side is going to be shutting down here in 2 minutes. I've dropped the link in chat several times. We're going to continue the show over on the Gauntlet. So click the link. I know the mods are dropping it as well, or catch the ride and ride the wave over during the raid into the Gauntlet. But just so you know, we will be shifting over to the Gauntlet in 2 minutes. Go ahead, Grid.
Yeah. So I was trying to answer this earlier. I don't know why we kind of went in a different direction. That's okay. So with Section 8, the landlords do have to have a lot of resilience if they're going to do it to begin with, and they have to do their due diligence. I personally don't do it because I own all of the homes that I rent. Now, I have an investment fund, right? I'm part of an investment fund that where we have investors and we buy houses, and the fund does do Section 8. There's some reasons for that. Mainly because it's a ton more houses. I mean, we've done 10 in the last 6 months. We're going to do another 10 by the end of the year. And it's just crazy. But so there's a lot less risk there. If we have one house get messed up, that's okay. The others will kind of absorb it. But we're also, we're still not doing as much Section 8 as some other people. Now, one of our original partners does do a ton of Section 8, and she has all of the problems that Lumberjack has, pardon me, outlined. And unlike he is very, really brightly suggested, she does not vet anyone herself. She has a service do it, and
scary.
She's the cheapest contractors, and literally, her as a she's the worst. One of the reasons why she's not a part of our organization anymore, she just could not handle the level of performance and expectation standards that we laid out, and part of that was we're not slumlords.
Yeah,
I might call myself a slumlord every once in a while, but I'm really not. I have really nice houses. I get good tenants. I charge fairly. And so, but this lady is a slumlord. I think she's got 21 or 22 properties in the Columbus, Ohio area, and she used, again, cheapest contractors, doesn't care as long as it meets the Section 8 requirements. That's fine.
So from I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, so from our
Shout out
perspective,
to Tomatoes. I'm shutting down Raging Tomato. Follow the raid over to the Gauntlet. We're continuing over there. Go ahead.
So to that end, Grid, and I appreciate that. So I own the 53 building.